We are live. I don't know why the
Huzzah.
camera's... What's happening with the camera?
I see the little live icon, but I have yet to see the stream.
Adjustment here.
Well, Stickin' 82 had a heck of a burger.
There we go.
Certainly is.
Wow.
Some of the cheese escaped, though, which is always sad.
No. Fixing things, fixing.
Yes, Wayne, we are live.
But we've taken a vow of silence, and you just ruined it.
Yeah. It's We're deep in thought this evening.
Somebody just lost the game.
Not me. I was master of my own domain.
Oh, no.
Here we go.
And that's what Kent has been up to this evening.
Oh, he's been up to more than that. Which you'll see later. Or maybe already have.
I once had a coworker, because we had like an online time off request system at work for his, he had to put in a reason for the time off request. So he put masturbate all day and sent that to his boss.
Time off.
I don't know what is going on with my camera today. Constantly refocusing.
It's
Yeah,
focusing on the LED lighting on your microphone.
I think you're right.
Yeah. You got to pull the mic closer to you.
I should switch to fixed focus, but I should just focus on the mic and then leave it alone. We'll do it like this. Doesn't really matter. In this small of a window, I don't think it matters that much.
Probably not.
I mean, it's giving me a seizure, but that's cool.
Yeah, as long as I stay perfectly still. Ryan had this amazing ability to stay almost completely still the entire time that I've never been able to emulate. And he was using a Heil mic that's very directional. And he just... somehow, it worked.
Practice. Discipline.
Yeah, I don't have it.
It's okay.
All right, let me hit the record button. This is a spirited pre-show. I'm sure the show will be a lot more lively once we actually get going.
Sure.
Burger.
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do at this point. I'm going to put a bag on my head.
The plastic bag that makes it's not.
That's bad.
That's
That's
not
very
good.
bad.
Yeah,
He's just advertising for his
There.
favorite spot.
you're gonna get banned on Twitch.
I thought I would combine two things, put a little excitement
No,
into
no.
the show as well as throw free advertising in there. There, that ought to get him talking.
I'll get a pop-out chat.
Remember,
going,
kids,
so I
don't
can-
put paper bags or plastic bags on your
Exactly.
head, but you can put them on
Don't-
Brett's head.
Don't do what I do.
Don't be like Brett.
No.
Only use well-ventilated mesh bags.
I didn't expect a snuff film tonight.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Must be new here.
No one expects that.
No.
It just kind of
that comes
happens.
out of nowhere. It just,
Yeah.
bam.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we talking about? What comes out of nowhere?
You'll find out very soon.
Suddenly snuff film.
Yeah. Okay, let's start the recording.
So I got to ask this.
Yeah, hold on.
How is the reboot of
reboot.
Of the cartoon reboot?
Justice League?
No, the reboot of Battlestar Galactica is already 17 years gone.
Ooh.
That doesn't seem at all possible. 2004,
Well.
around this time. I don't get it.
It's when the world all went to
It's
hell because they made
almost as
Cylon
old.
sexy.
It's almost as old as the original Battlestar Galactica was when the reboot happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, almost.
That's so weird. Yeah, the miniseries was those 2 episodes in December 2003. Huh. I remember watching that with a couple of friends. We were amazed by the snap zooms, the quality of the graphics. Yeah, no,
I
that's
like Sebastian's new look. Oh, no. Now he ruined it.
Yeah, well, extreme close-up.
He
We'll have it
took
uses
that
later.
invisibility formula finally. Oh, there
Oh,
it is.
I thought he had discovered a color of RGB that was passed through.
Okay,
Perhaps
manual
he was
focus
applying
enabled.
the new hair treatment.
That comes up later.
It does come up later.
Whoa, a 10900 KF is only 329 at Micro Center. Forget
Sure
the
it is.
11th gen.
You're stealing my thunder.
Okay. Hey, that's in the chat. Old man in the chat. That could be you. I don't know. I don't know what your handle is.
Oh man, look at your chat. Discord's a lot like you were.
Okay. You ready?
No. Let's do it anyway. Let's do it
I
live.
can't believe there's no burger. You're letting us down.
Well, you know, I
he's
ate
gotta-
one, but we've had it multiple times before, and the presentation was not great today. Tasted great, presentation
Was it the
bad.
naughty?
Popper? No, it was the popper.
Okay.
The popper is the the jalapeno, the candied jalapenos that are fried, and then cream cheese and extra things to make it spicy. The raspberry chipotle, that stuff.
Okay.
Josh, if I had known, I would have photographed my meal today at Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers.
Oh yeah, the Freddy Steak Burgers. They make a pretty good product.
It was actually really good. No kidding. Totally fine.
How they smash those patties and kind of solidify them around the edges.
It
It's
gets so
interesting, but it's good.
thin. It's like really
Yeah.
drawn out around the edges, and the bun overhang
Gets crispy. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they do it well. So
Nice thinly sliced double pickle on it. That's fine.
All right, ready?
That was about as much burger as we were going to get.
yeah,
I could go bring out my big thing of burger that I just cooked.
Oh, just raw.
It's
Raw
just-
burger.
well, no, it's cooked. It's
Oh.
been barbecued.
Okay.
Meaty.
They're just not finished.
We can finish this snuff film later.
With a bun and condiments and such. They're just a slew of burgers that I'll be eating.
All right, let's get started. In 3,
all right.
2. Hey everybody, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 622 being recorded on March 31, 2021. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Spoonberg.
And I'm Kent Burgess.
Yes, Kent is here with his sterling video quality, and he is the winner of Best Background with that.
Oh, hands down, yeah.
Yeah, easily.
You mean episode of Hoarders is not the best?
Runner
background?
up, Josh Walrath.
Look, it's a
You've had
cat.
better lighting. Josh, you've had better lighting on that.
He just
in the
needs
past.
the purple lighting behind him like Kent does. He's like a pro streamer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I need.
We're going to get to that in a minute. I'm not happy
Yeah.
with Josh this week, but in a housekeeping, let's get that out of the way. You can find out when we go live for events like this at pcper.com/subscribe and join our exciting text mailing list. Well, it's not text. It's email, but it's text. It's not like pictures. And anyway, you can also support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/PCPer. Brett, do we have any news on that front?
You know that we do. I mean, I ask people to kind of chime in while we're here live with a new, fresh change to their name if they're already a patron subscriber or a new subscriber, and we'll read that out loud. Our tolerance is very, very wide with what we'll read out loud. There are just a couple things that we won't read out
there's
loud.
only about like 50% of the stuff you can think of that I won't say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I might say the other 25% more.
Sure, yeah.
Actually. But
And
that's
Josh and I
just
can cover
me.
the rest.
Absolutely.
Sure.
You know, it's almost 100% coverage in the end. But we do have a couple of new patrons that I want to especially thank. John Wissink, I think if I pronounced that name properly. Thank you very much for joining sometime over the past week. I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday. Appreciate it. Thanks very much for helping us out, keeping the podcast going and the server spinning around. And I think I mentioned Mater Ferguson last time, but I just want to mention that name again because I like the name Mater Ferguson. So thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, we do. And it keeps us going.
You know, when you started all that, Brett, it suddenly brought me back to Paul Schaefer doing advertising for Rolling Stones. Do you remember those commercials?
You know, I do. And I
People
appreciate the
are
reference.
constantly asking me, Paul, what is your favorite magazine? And I always answer them, Rolling Stones. And then he does a little dingle at the end. Just call this number on the telephone. Get your
should try and
subscription
maybe
to
get a little bit more
Rolling
nasally.
Stones.
A little bit more nasally when I kind of roll into
Paul
that
Schaefer
one.
was the most
That's
annoying
getting
man
better.
in the 80s and 90s.
You know, most of our audience is going, "Who's Paul Schaefer?"
I know who he is, but yeah, I agree. Although, I don't know. I think our demographic are sophisticated people who know about the Letterman
The David
show.
Letterman show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I think
sophistication,
so.
all right.
I think so.
We're making a very strong case for Patreon. You know, you can support this, talking about late
Whatever
show
this is.
sidekicks, musicians. Was
You
he a
know,
producer too?
people-
I think he did a lot of stuff.
People tune into this because we don't know what's going to happen. That's why people tune in.
It's true. We don't do any rehearsals. Believe it or not, we don't do like a dry run of the show. We do
No.
it live
We just do it
for
live.
you.
Yeah.
And we're stalling here. I'm stalling because, you know, we have some bad
Anything.
news this week.
You know, this is the highlight of Sebastian's editing week, to
It
find
is.
the perfect song to go along with the special. But there was no special today. None. I called him up. It's like, what's special? We don't have one. Talk to the owner. Clayton, what's going on, man? Where's the special? No, Josh, we don't have one. So I got the regular popper, and it tasted good, but it just was not photogenic. And plus, we've seen it about a dozen times on the podcast. But I still appreciated the 2 4-ounce patties, candied fried jalapeno, cream cheese, raspberry chipotle in a sesame seed bun, and I think they even has some pepper jack in there. The fries were on point, though. So, yeah. No, that was
If
filled
only
me
you'd
up. 24
taken
hours.
a GD
fasting.
picture so we could show everybody. I'll have to
Yeah, but
fish out one of the old
it
ones.
was floppy and kind of wilty. It didn't look good. I mean, it was just, it would have been disappointing.
Do they have pictures
Josh, we're all
on their
getting to that
website?
That's
age.
what
We
she
just
said.
have to
Okay.
Yeah,
deal with
just
it and move on.
just you know, take what I said and visualize. You can do it. You don't have to have graphic interpretations. I mean, internet porn has been around only for 20 years. Before
not
that,
sure how we
people had
got
to use
Where
their
are you
imagination.
going with this? All right, quickly. Let's shift gears to our featured review of the week. The internet is buzzing. There's been this energy since the beginning of March about Intel's latest and greatest desktop parts. There were a lot of rumors about the scintillating performance numbers we'd be seeing. And even some early reviews. AnonTech reviewed it way back on the 5th of March by buying an early retail part that was put up for sale too soon. So it's just been a media circus, and people just can't get enough of Rocket Lake. And we got some Rocket Lake parts in for your pleasure here. The 11900 and 11600K. It's the same pairing we got with the 10th gen. We got the 10900 and 10600K last time around. So I got to compare those against the old ones. And this is new desktop architecture. It's up to a 19% IPC improvement with their Cypress Cove core, which is, it's taken from notebooks. They basically needed to get their single threaded performance up because the Ryzen 5000 series happened and it kind of ate their lunch. And along with that, you have the laptop graphics. So the faster graphics, Gen 12 actually, not even Gen 11. So I haven't tested integrated graphics yet, I must admit. That's my next step.
That's XE, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not bad. It's, from what I've seen, it's about 33% faster, and I'm guessing this up to 50 comes in select benchmarks. But hey, even 30% faster, I'll take it over what they had, and you can't buy a graphics card, so maybe you could actually do some light gaming on this.
Maybe.
And there's a new chipset. It's Intel. I mean, there's a new chipset. So it's the Z590 in our test board, the 500 series. And there's some new features. Gen 4 is finally here officially. And what I was interested in, although there are barely any devices that I know of that take advantage of it, USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2. So it's the 20 gigabit USB. And if you have a 2x2 device, there was a third-party 2x2 controller that was in some select C490 boards. I know the MSI had at least one. But now it's just part of the chipset. So you can get those super fast USB devices, and then of course they've added some some PCI Express lanes on the CPU. So 20 PCI 4 lanes from those core processors instead of 16. So with that out of the way, I mean, because you can run these processors on the 400 series boards. You're not necessarily going to get PCI Gen 4. It had to be certified for that, like motherboard vendor side. We saw the Taichi from ASRock last year say that it was PCI Gen 4 ready. So, but here we go. Here's the regression. You go from 10 cores, 20 threads with the 10900K, to 8 cores, 16 threads with the 11900K because, again, they backported 10 nanometer notebook tech to 14 nanometer desktop. This should be the last hurrah of 14 nanometer on desktop. Has slightly lower base clocks by 100 megahertz, but the same theoretical max boost of 5.3 gigahertz. That's the thermal velocity boost. Base and boost are 3.5 gigahertz to 5.1 gigahertz otherwise. And this is the first Intel desktop CPU that officially supports DDR4 3200, so they're catching up with Ryzen there. And then, of course, it's still 125 watt TDP, even though it's down to 4. Well, yeah, I know. I show the frequencies with the power limits on versus off in here, so you can kind of see exactly why.
Quick comment on the memory speed, though. There is some sort of Ryzen-like issue with the synchronicity between timings of their Gear 1, Gear 2 kind of modes that they operate in, on whether or not they introduce any asynchronous wait states in order to access RAM, or whether or not there's a clock frequency that it operates in synchronicity with RAM. And I think it's 2933, I think, is the one where you need to be exactly half that for the rate inside the CPU. I don't know, that bears some testing, but I understand that it's somewhat similar to like the I think the F clock in Ryzen.
Yeah, I had read some of that because AnonTech did their review early, and there was a lot of commentary about the different memory modes. And of course, there's something similarly named. There's something called gear down mode on the Ryzen side, but that's actually timings. We all know about the whole relationship, like the 2-to-1. You want the F clock to match the. It's like 1600 for 3200 and 1800 for 3600.
Right.
But with Intel, it's never been an issue before, so it's an interesting hitch, I guess. I just tested at 3200 because that's the officially supported standard. And I test every CPU at whatever its highest official speed is, so that, of course, means that the Ryzen stuff was also tested at 32, which means the base clock was only 1600 instead of 1800, because I wasn't doing any overclocking. So any of the results that follow are worst-case scenario, bone stock. You will do far better on Ryzen if you increase the F clock, of course. And so even so, you will see that Ryzen does quite well. Pricing actually seems to be higher. These are tray prices. The 539 for the i9. Yeah.
How about matte? Do they have matte prices?
I haven't seen matte prices.
Yeah,
Matte?
because tray is only one really half of that duo. So
You weren't even saying map. I thought you were doing manufacturer's advertised price. No, you meant
Matte.
Matte
No.
Stone.
Matt Stone and Trey Parker, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That one actually
Sorry.
didn't go over my head for once. But
Wow.
when I saw this on Newegg, over $600 for the i9. So it's significantly cheaper to buy the last gen right now. And then the i7 11700K is $400 tray price, and that's 1,000 unit price. And then the i5, it's the same price as last time. The i5 10600 and the 11600 are both 262.
It kind of seems like the 10850K is still really one of the better buys out there.
Yeah. And that's not on this chart for some reason. So
Yeah.
Didn't
here
make
it is,
everyone
though.
else look
11.
bad.
At 260, the 11600K doesn't look like as horrible a proposition as the others either. It performs pretty close with the 6-core Ryzens from what I saw on various benchmarks. A little lower, but it's also $90 less that you could spend on a GPU that you can't buy. So
Yeah, that's true. And the most ridiculous thing that because you had to come up with something. I was trying to be objective about this review. It's an underwhelming launch, to say the least. And I don't think we should have expected more from basically a beefed up laptop processor. But the faster graphics are the only thing that's really captivating me. That and the platform, because I think it's nice to have the much faster. Intel typically does really well with I/O anyway, and storage, and I haven't tested storage on this yet, but you finally have official Gen 4 storage support. You have the fast 2x2 USB built into the chipset, so those are appealing, but those aren't going to get an enthusiast to build Intel versus Ryzen. Lately, the biggest issue with Ryzen 5000 has been availability of anything beyond 8 cores. I don't know if anybody else has seen more availability of the 5900X, but I'm only seeing
Not
35,
today.
It's
56,
been bad.
38.
No,
But you can get a 5800X for
5800.
$449 now.
Yeah,
and that
right.
that rocks.
just did that the other day, actually.
Nice.
I'd like to see them go down about
Good
$50
CPU.
in price for both the 5600 and the 3800, but
We need
that's not gonna
competition for
happen.
that. Yeah. So it's,
yeah.
we'll
Well, I
see.
mean, in theory, Intel's $10 cheaper.
yeah,
In theory.
if they hit those prices right now, the 10th gen stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the prices we've seen on those, especially Micro Center prices, are really low. You can get
Getting a
10 cores for the
10600X
price of
for
6.
arcade? Yeah,
What's that?
for
I'm gonna-
$200.
I'm going to talk about this in like 5 minutes.
Let's talk
cool.
about this in 5 minutes. But let's just look
Sorry,
at some
Brett.
quick performance numbers.
No problem.
Blender, more cores equals better performance in multi-threaded tests, and the 5900X and 3900X, the 12-core processors on tests, both win handily, with the 5800X coming in third place. So AMD's 8-core performs almost identically to slightly faster than Intel's new 8-core. So the single-threaded performance is actually slightly faster on the AMD side, which resulted in just a bit of an overall victory. And that was with the i9 11900K running in its default out-of-box motherboard, automatically turbo with no power limits.
Normally, that would be crazy talk, what you're saying right now.
Right, but then you enforce all limits, and the performance it goes down. And actually, I misspoke because I'm looking at this. The way I charted this was in total time, not this is Blender, of course. So the Intel actually did have slightly better results in the BMW tests. I think it's because it was a shorter duration test. It's only like a 2 to 3 minute test.
It was cheating on its emissions too.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, wasn't that Volkswagen or was it BMW too?
Well, Volkswagen.
Yeah,
Was
it
that
was
okay?
Volkswagen.
Was
that
that
did it.
real or was that really an
No.
April
Okay,
Fool's joke?
that's
No,
actually
it's-
an
it's
item
it was
on,
users.
on the list. It's on the list.
Right, it's just an organic discussion. We don't have to micromanage podcasts. All right, let's get past Blender here because I botched that anyway, and look at something else. Let's see, Cinebench, everybody's favorite benchmark. What do you expect? AMD's on top because they have more cores and their single.
Well, even their
performance is
single
great.
thread is nice.
Yeah,
Look at that.
and look at that. Single-threaded performance of the
638.
1500X, 626. That's an average of 3 runs. With the 10 or the 11900K running in its default no-holds-barred mode, 647. And then for some reason, several times where there were shorter duration tests like this, you saw better performance with all the power limits enforced manually.
You know why that's because
Why? Tell me.
Why?
because it's not pushing as much power into there, and so the core doesn't heat up as fast and then kind of throttle down a bit. So it's the whole same thing of undervolting certain chips. You'll get better performance in thermals if you undervolt it and are still able to achieve these clock speeds. And then overall performance may even actually be better because you're not getting into that thermal headspace nearly as quickly. Make sense?
Yes.
Because I'm just talking out my butt. So
No,
Nah.
you're right.
Today it's
No, they had a special name for it and everything.
that is so begrudging. Yeah, you're right.
I unfortunately I have to accept that. Yeah. Let's see. I'm not in full screen mode. Let me go into full screen mode here. The one area where Intel can claim a victory is in certain benchmarks that will showcase single-threaded performance. They did finally, get back on top. So here we have Geekbench. Take it for what you will, but the 11900K with and without power limits being enforced right up at the top. Over 1600 for integer score, and floating point was over 1870 to 1888. And then the 5900X is down in the mid 1400s for integer, but right up there with floating point. Floating point performance with the Zen 3 stuff is very good. So better integer performance single-threaded from Intel this generation. That's the main victory there. But that's, it's not enough. And if I just move on to... this is weird to me, and I tested this repeatedly. Dota 2. Intel likes it when you test scenarios where the GPU can really be held back by the CPU. So if you're doing any kind of, anybody would. You're doing a CPU review, you have to come up with a scenario where the CPU will be the factor that scales, not the GPU. So with the same RTX 2080 Founders Edition card that I've used for CPU tests for the last couple of years, put that back on the test bench, and in Dota 2, at 1080, lowest preset using DirectX 11, same scene, same exact scenario. This is actually like a pre-baked thing. I have links to how to run this in the review. But the performance is pretty shocking because back in the day, it was all Intel on the top of this chart, all the way up to 10th gen, where they were leaving like a 3900X was at 237 frames per second, and a 9900K was at 258, and a 10900K was at 300 plus. and they surpassed that. Like the 11900K, 392, huge gains there. But at the top of the chart, you have AMD 5800X at the very top, and a little behind it is the 5900X, and we're approaching 500 frames per second with the 5800X. So high frame rate, low detail, competitive, like esports gaming scenario like this. I could not understand how this was even possible, but I ran the test a bunch of times, and they were consistent results. So either something's very wrong here, and I am on early firmware.
I'm pretty sure that entire Dota 2 game fits in the L3 cache of the AMD processor.
It could be.
That could be it.
Way more cache on the AMD side. You're right about that. But hey, I tried a different game. I just put the AMD versus Intel processors against each other in Metro Exodus, which is a DirectX 12 benchmark here, the way I ran it, at 720p, so 1280 by 720, lowest preset settings again. And here you kind of trade blows, where the 5800X was at 240 frames per second, 11900K was at 224, right behind that, 222 was the 5900X, and then the Core i5 11th gen was at 214. But, I mean, again, 5800X. These are only two tests, but it's looking like that's the high frame rate CPU right now. And you can actually buy it.
Yeah.
Unlike the 5900X. So, power draw. That's what everybody wanted to talk about, especially after the AnandTech review. I didn't do any AVX 512 stuff to create a worst case scenario like Dr. Tech Potato Chip did, but power consumption, all limits enforced, 274 watts. This is peak. This was not sustained. The highest it ever hit in benchmarking, I was running Blender, 274. That is actually about the same as the 10900K, which is 278. And then the 11900K without any power limits was 287 peak. That's total system draw. And I mean, it's just look at the 8-core 11th gen in relation to the 10-core 10th gen, and the fact that there's no power savings at all, even though you're 2 cores below it and essentially the same clock speeds. It's kind of, I mean, whatever. This is desktop. If you're an enthusiast, I don't think you care about running maybe 75 watts more as long as you have a cooler for it. I used a 280 millimeter all-in-one, and it was hitting 70, but it wasn't much higher in any of these tests.
Can I say one negative thing about your review?
Yeah.
When are you going to do the storage?
I'll get to it. This was a CPU performance benchmark thing. It wasn't.
I know, but PCI 4.0 is part of that performance.
Yeah.
We've got these nice, brand new, shiny PCI 4.0 SSDs.
And look, I could probably benchmark. I'll benchmark the Samsung 980 Pro.
All the things.
And show how it's like 1 to 5% faster than when I tested on the X570 platform, something like that. That's what I expect. We'll see.
Plus or minus 27%.
Sure. Yep. Here are the clocks.
No, that's
by
the USB.
Way. Here's what it looks like on a multi-core load that lasts more than 30 seconds. Because for some reason, this is kind of telling. Tau on this was only 28 seconds. That's a notebook number. I thought desktop always defaulted to 56. I could be wrong. But this was dropping at 28 seconds and not 56. But anyway, it was starting off a little bit lower, 4.7 all-core, and then dropping to 4.2 gigahertz all-core under a long, sustained test with all, and then without any power limits at all, it was just at 4.8 gigahertz all the time, no matter what. So, if you have the power and thermal headroom, you're basically overclocking if you run without power limits. You get a lot better performance in a multi-threaded test like, this Blender Classroom render.
But you pay the price in 100 watts at the plug.
Yeah, it was 75 to 100 watts more.
Mhm.
to run without limits. So, and it was the Core i5. I didn't bother doing the limits versus no limits thing because it's a much lower power processor. It was under 200 watts even without a power limit. Total system draw running CPU benchmark. So I can't see enthusiasts buying a Core i5 and then artificially limiting performance when they're well under the thermal limit. But hey, maybe somebody will test it that way too.
What part does the board vendor play in this?
The board vendor?
Yeah,
You know, the
like,
Borg vendor,
for-
the people who sell the Borg.
I don't know of
necessarily.
any
Usually
board vendor
bald.
that does not ship unlocked. That does not ship without. Like the interesting thing about this was booting up the Maximus 13 Hero board for the first time, or anytime you do a CPU change, it tells you on the screen that when you press F1 to continue, you're going through with an automatic all-core enhancement, which is turning limits off. And it will decide if there's thermal headroom to enable this or disable this automatically. You can also force it to be enabled all the time or force it to be disabled. That's where the enforce all limits mode. And those three options are right up on the front page now, right above or right below setting like your overclocking profile, like XMP for your memory. Right below that, are you running with or without power limits? So it's nice that it's that clear what you're about to be doing, but the default is still to disable all power limits, and it's like that on every board that I've seen, at least the last couple of generations. So the difference in power draw between these and the AMD processors is, of course, staggering, and especially the 5800X. That does not draw a lot of power, and it's as fast as this 11th Gen Core i9 in most tests, if not faster. So,
It has so many more cores.
Well, no.
well,
It's
no,
the same
it's the
amount.
same number of cores. It's just
Oh, sorry.
5800.
yeah, the
I thought you were looking
5800X. It's remarkable. 8-core AMD versus Intel, and it's like the old. It's like it's been flipped. The story has been flipped, where AMD was making up with core count, and there was the core wars, and then Intel couldn't compete when AMD had a 12-core part. The best Intel could come up with was putting together a 10-core part last generation.
That's what I thought you were talking about. 12
Yeah.
and 16 core parts.
No, but I mean, yeah, and we didn't even talk about 16. I don't have a 5950X here.
Yeah.
And of course,
And that would
those
make
exist.
everybody else even more sad. So,
Yeah.
Sad.
16 cores and still great single thread performance, but it's
yeah.
it's been not very well received. I always look at the Gamers Nexus thumbnail to see like what's the feeling about this product, and like, oh, okay, all right, they're trashing it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, pretty much.
I have a
Yeah,
feeling
you know,
that in
There-
the next probably 3 years, Rocket Lake is going to be looked back on the way Bulldozer and Pile Driver are looked back on right now.
yeah, it'll be similar. I think that the problem with Bulldozer was the sort of pseudo core count issue.
The CMT, yeah.
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 Yeah,
Which,
floating
you
point
got a
was
few
not
bucks for
good.
that if you were part of that class action thing.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I've got to give some credit to where credit is due to Intel, because backporting a design from 10 nanometer to 14 nanometer is no small affair. Because if you look at how AMD does stuff, they have a lot of software tools. They've invested heavily in that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of automated place and route or trace and route, whatever you want to call it. But Intel is the opposite. They do mostly hand placement of transistors in that. I mean, now it's not as true now as it used to be, just because we're dealing with CPUs of billions and billions of transistors. But when you've got 8 cores in there, you can essentially copy and paste in ways. I mean, it's not as easy as that, obviously, but if you lay out the majority of one core, then you can do that on the others a lot more simply. But AMD overall is a lot more automated. And I don't know if you remember back in the day, early 2000s, Epic came out with their Unreal Engine, and they had these amazing graphical editing tools that anybody could use. And they, people could make their own maps and their own games and whatnot. And the mod scene really took off. But id Software was kind of the opposite in that they didn't have those really fancy kind of tools, drop something here, drop something there, apply a texture here, do some scripting. All of their tools were really kind of esoteric. And that was the way John Carmack really kind of liked it. I mean, that was the way that his mind worked. And so they all kind of worked around that. And I mean, it came out with comparable stuff, but the ease of use on Epic kind of, and Unreal made that, a better option. Now, Intel is kind of the same way when it comes to Foundry technology. Their design tools are not as automated, and they're a little bit more esoteric, and they're more closely knit with the process technology. And so taking something that's designed for 10 nanometer and backporting it to 14 is not just, kind of reflow and resynthesize. It's a tremendous amount of work, and they were able to do it in a relatively decent time. And I have no idea how many engineers worked on this, but it had to have been a tremendous amount because, they talked in their Foundry thing that they're moving towards better tools so that third parties can more adequately utilize the Foundry technology that Intel has. And so when you're looking through that glass, I mean, it kind of changes things around because it was a tremendous amount of work. And even though it is not exactly pretty and came out perfect, it still runs well. It's competitive. It runs hot. It eats a lot of power, but it works. And they boost up there. And yeah, it's competitive. And they, these were, organic, free range CPUs that they were able to, provide us in reasonable amounts. So I don't know. What do you think? Am I giving them too many props?
Well, long ago, I mean, they started this a year ago, 2 years ago. They knew where this was going to land with some idea. I don't think they're too surprised to find out that they're a little bit under their previous generation and they're not as far ahead as they really wanted to be.
They're not really that far behind the previous gen. If you look at the overall performance numbers out there,
Not really.
the loss of 2 cores.
You say that so nicely.
Barely an issue. I was surprised at how close they were in some of the multi-threaded tests, just because single-threaded perf is higher. But overall, I mean, it's almost like, okay, do you want 10 cores for about the same power draw, where you'll get a little bit of an edge in multi-threaded in certain circumstances, or you want 8 cores with the same power draw that comes close because of higher single-threaded perf? It really depends on, at that point, I think, pricing and availability. And if you really, really have a use case where higher single thread is going to give you a big advantage, I think the biggest advantage to this, and we've already been on this for almost half an hour, but the platform is the bigger story here, because this is when you can be on an Intel platform and have the modern conveniences like Gen 4 and faster I/O. So that becomes a bigger deal to me than anything else, because I would prefer, I think, to stick to 10th gen if I'm building a system, because they're a lot cheaper right now. They're $100 or $200 less.
What's the real difference between buying a 590 board versus a 490 board, and putting in an 11th gen or a 10th gen chip and on either one of those? I mean, what are you really losing or gaining?
Now, Z590 is not backwards compatible, right? You can put a Rocket Lake on a Z490 board with BIOS update, but I don't know that
That's
the
a
Z590 is
question.
backwards compatible at all.
I actually
Didn't
sort
see
of
anyone
assumed that it
try.
was.
I think you can put a 10 series chip on a 590 board.
Okay.
I can't remember where I saw that, but in one of the reviews I was reading yesterday, I'm almost positive someone said that.
Yeah, for some reason I thought that they had said that in some briefing, but I could be completely wrong.
Well, that was the PCIe 4.0 ready part.
Yeah, I know
But
that the board
then it
vendors
sort of fell
said,
apart.
Well, the board vendors kind of implied, and you talked about one earlier, but many of them are in fact coming out with BIOS updates that seemingly are enabling PCIe Gen 4 on their Z490 platforms when hosting an 11th gen CPU.
Yeah.
I think that they're only, I think some of them may be only enabling the first M.2 slot and or lanes to the first PCIe slot. Does that sound right? I think that may be something that they're doing.
Unknown. I have to look into it. I'm just
That's
curious
a
right now
vicious
as to
rumor.
what the
I'll spread
official
that. I'll
CPU
start that rumor.
support is.
No, I didn't get around to the motherboard reviews today, so
There weren't very many, which is one of the reasons why I put on the list to find out what Sebastian thought of the Asus ROG 13 Hero at all, whether he had any initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, it supports 10th gen, so I was wrong there. No real impressions. It's just like the Maximus 12, but it's a Z590. I haven't done any storage or I/O or anything like that on it yet.
My sense is that
Josh
the
is aware.
Z490 and Z590 boards seem very, very similar in a lot of ways and are aesthetically a little bit different, but especially
and one
the
might use
vendors
higher
that
temperature
prepared-
solder.
yeah. The vendors that prepared for PCIe 4.0 on their Z490 boards are not having to make a lot of changes. Honestly, it doesn't seem
No.
like it.
You can check out the usual huge motherboard roundup.
Oh, there's
the
a differences
non-tech.
chart. You just
There
went
is.
by a differences chart. Yeah, you had one there. Oh, for boards that supported Thunderbolt, they went from Titan Ridge to Maple Ridge. That was actually a difference. You were
Yes.
just on that when you cut away. So boards, Z490 boards that supported Thunderbolt 3 using the Titan Ridge chipset, on Z590 boards that support Thunderbolt, they're moving to Thunderbolt 4 with Maple Ridge as their chipset. So, I mean, that's good from an I/O perspective, external
No
I/O.
offense, but who cares? I mean, this is
Well,
you're
Thunderbolt.
you can look into it. Yeah, for the 18 Thunderbolt devices that'll support it in the world.
There's 14.
Okay. If you're getting into the minutia of what are the differences between the two chipsets exactly,
Yeah,
this
truly.
is not an exciting launch at all
It's not. No,
This
no,
is
that's
not a
the point,
win.
really.
in any way on performance, except for certain single-threaded workloads. But we've been on this for a while. Let's move
If
on.
you can save a few dollars, maybe buy a Z490 if you really, really want this.
I would go Z490 and 10th gen myself because it's
Speaking
just so
of-
much cheaper right now.
Speaking of 10th gen, so I went to Micro Center today, like I threatened to do. And while I was there, I happened to scope out kind of what was in stock and on sale and kind of what they had. And they had literally, I'm not exaggerating. They had 40 GPUs. They were GT710s and GT730s. Okay, they had about 40 of those, split kind of evenly. And what they did is they spread them out across the case to kind of like fill it out a little bit to make it look like they had stock. But on the end cap, there were 3 legit GPUs, 2 RTX 2060s, and 1 GTX 1660 for sale. On the way out, I'll skip
Wah, wah.
around here a little bit. Yeah, but on the way out, I happened to see in already purchased. The way that you buy things at Micro Center is some of the high dollar items you ask for, and you see them, you don't actually take them. They say, okay, we'll have this for you at the front, and they put them in a locked cage at the front. And when you come up to the front, you can kind of present your ticket, and they go get it out of the locked cage, and they give it to you at the register. That's for high ticket items, high dollar items. Small items like CPUs or high ticket items like GPUs. While I was walking out, I happened to see that inside the cage where people had purchased that day were probably 5 or 6 6800 XTs, AMDs, and several 3080s, probably about 5 or 6 of those as well. So stock is actually flowing to the Micro Center, which is, maybe you should kind of live near one. That would be good. But while I was there, I went and got one of those hot new Intel CPUs that everybody's talking about. I know. I couldn't resist. I bought the best that I could, and I bought a 10850K. Yeah, it's the new hotness. You guys probably maybe haven't heard of this yet. Just came out. But yeah, I think it's the best value going. So I went and got one. And you should too. It was $319 for
That
10,
was
850K.
That's a deal.
and hey, you're getting 10 cores and slightly
And 20
lower
threads, man.
clocks.
It's a good deal.
Some clocks.
Hey, are we ready to talk? Or no, Josh, are you ready to talk about ARM?
I bet he is.
Apparently not, because
No,
he's
not.
muted.
He's muted.
He's
Oh man,
cut
you
himself
know,
off.
it's passing gas and didn't
Oh my
want anybody
gosh.
here. And
How much snark did we miss? Like as a percentage of the whole? Like 2%? 3%?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But anyway, on Monday, I attended a virtual conference, which of course makes me cry because this was the England trip year for ARM. But, you know, COVID ruined the Austin trip last year, and now it's ruined the England trip, and it was supposed to be in Cambridge. And, you know, it makes one cry because who doesn't want to go and visit England in the spring and drink beer?
Cambridge is beautiful. I've been there.
Yeah. So, anyway, we weren't sure what was going to be presented. We thought it would be kind of another refresh of what is their latest stuff? The A78? I can't remember. There's too many numbers in there. And, you know, new Mali, new NPUs. And we thought that, you know, they'd just kind of, you know, enhance the stuff that they had and they go there. But no, they shocked everybody. They announced the ARM v9 architecture. Now, previously it was the ARM v8, which its big claim to fame was it was the first ARM 64-bit architecture. ARM v9 extends past that, so it's full ARM v8 compatibility. This is really aimed at high performance and not necessarily high power. So they're really aiming at a lot more machine learning. They're pushing. Let me take a look at my slide here. Improved security. I mean, that is one of the biggest things that they are working on. It's I think their compute core security. I can't remember exactly. I mean, I should really take notes about these things and be prepared. But it is a much more extensible and secure solution than we have seen before. And when we're talking from edge to servers, the amount of jumps in there and the products that we have and all the possible things that could go wrong, this is a great idea. And they're working on, you know, better virtualization support, better security within virtualization. You'll have, you know, containers in there and running programs that are all, you know, blocked off from each other. And it's all done in hardware. So it's extremely quick, and they're hoping, you know, mostly transparent to users. And with IoT and 5G and all these other words and things out there, security is I mean, you have to have that from the very beginning. I mean, we've had, you know, Rowhammer, we've had Spectre, we've had all these other things that have, you know, been a problem for the vast majority of CPUs out there. And ARM is trying to nip this a little bit more in the bud by having a more secure solution from, you know, basically design start. So ARM v8 was released in 2011 in October, I believe, and now we're almost 10 years to that point, and we've now got a new architecture. It's still 64-bit, but it's really predicated on how do we do machine learning and these type of workloads better? How can we better integrate accelerators and DSPs? And then, of course, from the very beginning, how do we integrate better security than what we've had throughout our entire lineup and what our competitors have to, you know, enable, you know, sticking cell phones and point of sales and, you know, wireless transactions and everything that we take for granted, which is not always as secure as it probably should be. So these are the main points that ARM is really pushing with their new ARM v9. And they didn't go into a lot of details about, you know, what products would be coming out. all they said is that the first ARMv9 stuff will be some basic products at the end of this year. And so I can't remember which group was talking about that. It might have been Huawei, Zenmi. I can't remember.
Probably
Again,
both.
taking notes would be good. But anyhow, it was the middle of my workday. I couldn't get any time off. I was trying to do help desk stuff at the same time as pay attention to this, and just nothing works for me right now. It just, feel sorry for me. Here's my Patreon.
You need more machine
money.
learning.
Yeah.
Well, the compute of tomorrow transcends performance, Josh.
Sure, it
That's what the slide
does.
says.
But anyway, I mean, ARMv9, it's a significant jump. Maybe not as significant as going to 64-bit on ARM, but the stuff that they're doing, I mean, they're really aiming for the promise of heterogeneous compute that we were offered 12 years ago with AMD when they started talking about the future is fusion. And this really is, I mean, it's NPUs, it's GPUs, it's CPUs, it's instruction sets that are more finely tuned for machine learning. So, I mean, if you've seen in the past 5 years, what even just their CPUs were able to do with different types of instructions and what do you call them? Just not instruction code, but like, FP8 and int8 and stuff like that they have integrated in. I mean, because, machine learning doesn't require the precision. It just needs a lot of throughput. And so you could have, lower precision type stuff and do it faster. But previously you either had, all or nothing. I mean, you had a pipeline that could handle these, FP8 stuff, but in theory it could do, it at fully functional, it could do FP32, but you couldn't do 8 FP8. I'm probably not even doing this right. But anyway, you couldn't do that for FP8 instructions or workloads going through there at the same time. You were just limited to one, but they've improved the granularity of all that. So, you have much better support for all of these data functions that, machine learning requires. And when you're talking about, visual type learning stuff, photography and identification, voice commands, other, software that's coming out that will be more sound oriented in identifying things and whatnot. It's going to, utilize the CPU, the GPU, and these NPUs that they're trying to get out and get better support for. And that's coming. And we haven't even talked about NVIDIA coming in. And while it's not a done deal, they're really hoping to get the ARM hardware with the NVIDIA software stack, which, after working in the machine learning industry as I have in my primary job, NVIDIA is really the gold standard when it comes to machine learning. I mean, their hardware and their software dominate. Other people have tried to get in there, but it's just, it's CUDA. You run stuff with R and CUDA and Python, Anaconda, but it all comes back to, it all runs on NVIDIA hardware and their software stack. And we're going to see, if things go the way NVIDIA wants, and seemingly ARM does too, they're going to have a huge jump in the mobile market from everybody else, just because they instantly have this really complete, robust, mature software stack of CUDA software and applications, and a couple of generations of programmers who are now familiar with this stuff, all going onto the ARM system. It's, it's exciting for them. Might be exciting for you. I don't know. It depends if you like NVIDIA or not. But, it just is. I mean, NVIDIA has really the best software stack out there when it comes to machine learning. And they are able to leverage, all these other third-party guys, but it all runs on kind of this CUDA base. And it's what's known, and you program what you know. Any questions
Josh,
after
well,
my
from an
long
ARM
tirade?
perspective, the top supercomputer just a little while ago was an ARM V8 based machine, wasn't it? And
It's what the
that was
Fugaku?
yeah, wasn't it? Wasn't it UK or was it in Japan?
It's in
Not the
Japan.
UK.
Now, NVIDIA is doing a supercomputer with ARM in Cambridge, and I can't remember what that one's called.
That's what I was thinking of
But
it.
it's not going to be the fastest, but it's going to be pretty hefty. But yeah, the I think it's the Fugaku.
One of the reasons
supercomputer
why
in Japan.
the architecture scales, or not scales, but really works so well is because their instructions are all the same size, which is not at all like x86. It's one of the reasons why the Sebastian will love this. It's one of the reasons why the Macs are so quick, so really fast with this particular architecture, is because they don't have a really complex instruction decoder, whereas unfortunately x86 has a lot of, let's just say, legacy problems with different length and size of instructions and on what's a data element and what's an instruction to work on the data. In ARM, they sort of saw that as a problem, and everything is the same size. So their decoder step is far, far more architecturally efficient than x86's honestly will ever be until
Boy,
x86.
you're going into some serious philosophy there. We could talk about it, something to talk about, because yeah, the
That's true.
x86 overhead is not nearly what it used to be, and we're at the process
Yes.
technology and
They've gotten
design that it's not as big as it used to be. I mean, 15 years ago, if you wanted low power, you're going to get an ARM with RISC, because there are just some good things with just how it handles instructions and decode and these parts that typically consume a lot of power in the past, but not anymore. But yeah, no, I mean, it's RISC is still, I mean, it's they've done some great things. If you go way back into like 1985 and look at the ARM1 versus the 8088 or 8086, overall system and performance was far better just because it was better architected. But IBM had the IBM PC, and it was it was an Intel processor, and it dominated most of the world. Even though Acorn
Right, Acorn,
back
yeah.
in the 80s,
The Acorn back then.
they developed the ARM1 chip, and they started on the let's go RISC, and let's get our memory in order, and the tube in between the chips, and it's just architecturally speaking, it was an advanced product just compared to the IBM PC. But
And at least the BBC loved
that-
them.
They started from a
yeah,
slightly
it's the
different place,
BBC
and
Micro. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And with the standing on the shoulders of what had come before them, which was Motorola and Intel at the time. So
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's like a couple hour discussion, and
heck
but
yeah, good stuff.
but yeah,
Boring,
it's
but good.
yeah.
What was the original
But we can leave
ARM
philosophy
acronym
later.
Was it
What?
Acorn RISC something or other? Is that
Machine.
what Acorn RISC
Yeah.
machine? Okay. Any other comments on this before we move on?
It's neat stuff. I'm excited to see what they're able to do. It's going to be a while before we see a lot of productization on this, but the hardware is coming out. We'll get more details on it probably in October, and we'll see what new things that they will bring. But it's a much more tightly integrated ecosystem when it comes to having not just CPUs and GPUs, but CPUs, GPUs, NPUs, DSPs, and other accelerators that their partners are developing for certain workloads. So it's going to be fun and interesting to see.
You know where you won't see it?
Where?
Computex 2021. At least not in person.
Oh, why?
Not that it
Why?
would be there anyway. Is what's the other one? What's the big mobile show in Barcelona every year?
Mobile
that's right.
World Conference.
MWC, that's right. Are they still having that? Was that canceled? Has that already happened?
Last
I
I
think it
heard,
was-
they were
it's
blathering
actually
about
in
trying
March.
to do it.
They were still trying to do it. That seems insane.
Yeah.
The organizers
But
behind
it's pretty much
Computex
come and gone.
came to their senses. So they've canceled the physical show. Virtual event still taking place. So, hey, exciting. Sign up for all those virtual sessions. You can't really hold the show when none of the vendors will come and the borders are shut down for,
Yeah.
we're going to have an Olympics where there'll be no outside attendance other than the competitors. Why would we have Computex? And other things are
They're
being
not the
canceled.
only ones.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like PAX
Yeah,
East
PAX.
is canceled.
E3.
Of course, yeah. E3's. Will it ever come back? Will that just become a virtual event?
Hard to say. Probably will come
It's
back.
like they can get most of it done while not even being there.
It's all.
Yeah.
hoopla.
Most of that is true of all of them.
It just depends. How much
But
money
no.
do you want to spend for hype? And I think for a lot
Well-
of these companies, that's a big focus, but it's an older show. It's not as necessary as it once
As opposed
was.
to Computex, right?
Yeah, Computex is a big deal, far bigger deal in our industry than
Well,
CES is. But you don't really need any of that. I think we were conditioning ourselves over this last year and a half or so to just do everything virtually anyway. It is very different to have a product session with a representative where they're just holding up hardware in front of a webcam. It's nice to be able to go hands-on with stuff.
It just
It is a little odd.
I think that the first big show that comes back after everything else has died down, I think that attendance is going to be huge because companies have not spent money on travel. People have not spent money on travel. People have been stuck in their homes, and so I think, Cat, stop scratching me. Ow, kitty.
Cat scratch fever.
Yeah, I think that when something like this actually opens up, they're going to be inundated with requests to go there, and hotels, and because people miss seeing other people. People miss experiencing Taiwan or Las Vegas or Cambridge, and so once this opens up, it's just going to be. I mean, I think that they will underestimate how many people will want to show up just because budgets have been in place that you were to travel and they haven't. And people are sick and tired of looking at their same four walls at home.
Well, we'll find out in
Maybe I'm
Barcelona
wrong.
because they did move Mobile World Congress till the end of June,
Oh, okay.
and it
So
will
is
be
still-
in person.
Okay, fantastic.
And,
At least
one of the
until it
ones
isn't. Until it's canceled.
One of the ones
Yeah.
I added to the list was Gamescom, which is doing a hybrid event. So they're doing a limited attendance. So
But
they're
Brett,
limiting the number of
the
people
most
that can
important
physically
one is
attend.
WWDC, and of course that's all virtual. Craig Federici
That's fine. I usually
with a
watch
virtual
WWDC.
set behind him. It's going to be great. Can't wait.
It's a 1.5 story tall video screen with a.
Because it's going to be
It's,
all
uh,
about M1X and the new iMacs, right?
Yeah.
Sure. I might buy one.
Of course you will. All right.
I might.
Let's see. Before we take a break here, let's mention Jeremy posted
One more.
another version of Ada 64. 6.3.
Yeah, because there was kind of a launch, so you gotta be able to see what's going on that Z590 board, which is of course one of the major big ones is the B560 and the Z590. There is, however, as the little screenshot that you're showing shows, a variety of new GPU tests, which sort of focus on more of the productivity machine learning type of tests.
Oh.
Seeing as how that's what a lot of people are using it for right now. They've also caught up with the brand new Epics, so Milan will be very nicely supported as you pick this up. This is a major update, but not a new version. So if you've already got it, just do the
Who's
update.
the
if you
dude
don't.
behind that? Tomas?
Yeah,
He always drops
Tomas.
a nice little note for me. Hey Josh,
Oh, yeah.
blah 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 blah. Released a new one. Here you go. How come
I
you never
remember
call
his
me
last name.
anymore?
It's I still chat with them. At least I try to. And then for your water coolers, the other fun thing is that not only did they decide to add a whole bunch of support for a variety of Corsair's all-in-one water coolers. But they've also included Aqua Computer's HighFlow Next. So if you build your own cooling loops, you should also be able to get some stuff. So it's a great little platform, not just for giving you just about everything you'd ever want to know about what's going on in your system at a time, but some decent benchmarks as far as stability and performance goes. So if you got it, hit the update button. If you don't, there's a month-long trial, and it's worth it. And the personal editions aren't exactly that expensive, so it might, if you're interested and serious in doing it, the $40 for 8 of 64 Extreme isn't a horrible idea.
Let's pause here for a word from this week's podcast sponsor.
Sleep better with Helix Sleep.
The ad read itself will be longer than that, but you have to wait for the edited version. Now, people, they watch the live stream and then they say, no, I've got to watch the edit just to hear Brett do that marvelous ad read of his.
I have to say that Helix Sleep has actually had some suggestions how I could improve what it is
naturally.
that I'm doing. Yeah. So I've gotten some good feedback, and I'm going to try and incorporate
hey,
that.
I
So
want
please,
you to
you guys
be more
come back.
positive about the product that you're advertising.
I am positive about it. I've actually experienced it, and it's pretty good. I've less back pain, better sleep, no doubt. Actually, is
Hey, you don't have to say all this here. We'll save it for the ad read.
I'll stop now.
Okay.
Truth. There's actually some truth to it.
A way to improve sleep? Can they send me a review sample?
Yeah, I was gonna say I could help participate in some testing here.
It's gone well.
You need 2 of them, one on top of the kid and one below him.
I don't think that's
that ties
not
in
an
with the
approved.
bag on the head from the beginning.
that's
of the
not an
stream.
approved.
Yeah.
Speaking of the bag on the head, should we go back to that really
No,
quick?
please not. Don't put plastic bags on your head, people. Hey, we're
Not
back.
that head.
And we're back for an exciting revelation. This was amusing news from last week.
Yeah, but was it true?
What, the GA 102 250 thing?
The cross out. It's a little bit further
that
down.
looks a little weird.
It's
but
a little
hey.
sus.
If you haven't read about it, allegedly there was going to be an RTX 3080 Ti. And they canned it, according to rumors. And it's basically the same as a 3090. Some things were shut off, perhaps. But you can just re-enable it, and you have a full-fledged 3090, or at least allegedly so. Video card's source says, quote, all GA102-250 GPUs are being remarked GA102-300 by NVIDIA to be used in RTX 3090, end quote. And according to a user from Hardware Lux, you can see this picture with a GA102-250 crossed out and GA102-300A1. Now, this could have been done after the
You
fact.
fired up the silkscreen machine just to do that, did you?
Could have been photoshopped, I
seems-
guess.
Dude, that's
yeah.
laser etching.
It
Get it better.
It already
Well,
has thermal
say-
paste on it.
Yeah.
Bad thermal
That's-
paste, too. I mean, that's not where
Yeah.
you'd want it.
So I don't know. It makes sense to me that they'd repurpose it if they can sell a SKU that has better margin, that's in demand, obviously.
Yes.
The-
They don't have to create a new SKU exactly.
Yeah.
All new
SMs
packaging and
The SM
launch.
count between these two, if you look, this is of course an unannounced product.
I like
They're
how they
claiming
headlined
around
this with
80
to be leaked.
SMs.
To be leaked.
Yeah, the
I love
picture
that.
says to be leaked. Yeah, CUDA cores count. I mean, it's such a similar product that the only real difference becomes the half the memory. It's only 12 versus 24 gigabytes of GDDR6. Slightly lower clocked too, but that's all rumor. I mean, we don't know. It says May 2021, so hey, maybe we'll hear something in a month or two about this new 3080 Ti that's close to the performance of a 3090, but with half the memory. Maybe we won't, but
You know what?
anyway.
In 6 weeks, we'll know for sure.
Or will we? Will we know anything
Well,
for
you
sure?
will. You'll know first.
Yeah, but I won't.
Well,
be able
no,
to
it's
talk
not in
about it.
stock, regardless.
Ah, you can't
Launched
buy
or
one,
not,
but
you won't be able to buy one.
right.
You know, at least Nvidia kind of figured out that, we're going to release a bunch of SKUs all before the new year, and then they started releasing SKUs, and they're like, we really don't need more SKUs. We probably just need to ship what we have out and make some money and keep our partners happy instead of fracturing this even more and making things even less accessible. So no more SKUs until you can get into our hot little hands.
Yeah, no more SKUs. Just sell one GPU and make it
Yeah.
$100 and make
Okay.
a billion of them.
Exactly.
Speaking of NVIDIA, this will be of interest to some. NVIDIA
Well,
officially
they've been-
enables GPU pass-through for added functionality on VMs. Please
For people
explain
who
to me
don't
what this
know
is.
what this is, where you can host a system that might be running Linux as an operating system, but it could be running something like Proxmox or Unraid, which is a typical kind of
ESXi.
server environment. Yes, exactly. ESXi. Yep, I have another very good example of typical, maybe even home or small office environments that host a disk service and multi service environment for hosting VMs. A lot of times those will be on a system that has an inbuilt iGPU, so there's already potentially local video, but you may also want to host a Windows environment on that machine. It was extremely difficult, and NVIDIA actually worked against this on purpose of passing through that video card to a hosted virtual environment that might be running Windows, where that poor home user could probably have a server and a games environment if they could just get their Windows virtual server on that sort of Linux system to pass through the GPU to the virtual environment. NVIDIA kind of reserved that functionality for their higher end server based, what they would consider their server class GPUs at the time, and for their very expensive clients, and fought against it. They're finally allowing GPU pass through for their consumer level cards, which is very nice of them. So kudos. AMD's essentially allowed this forever. It's about time that NVIDIA did as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't totally banned or
job.
anything before, but it was a lot
you
more
could work
work
around it.
to get it
Indeed.
done. Yeah.
Indeed,
Yeah.
you are correct. But they fought. They worked against it. They didn't make it easy
Yeah.
at all. That's it. Good on them. They've done a consumer friendly move. Just want to recognize that.
I
Huzzah.
hope it passes through physics too.
Did you say physics or physics? I just was wanted to check that.
Physics.
That's what I thought you said.
Okay, Jeremy.
And systems like, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Systems like Unraid make this super easy. They essentially give you a screen where you can just check the box and say, yeah, Linux, ignore this, or Unraid, which is based upon a version of Linux called Slackware. I think it was Slackware. Pass this through to whatever VM that I want to fire up next. That could be, some version of Windows or even Mac OS.
Yeah.
It's
Well-
BIOS. Is that okay?
Yeah, you could run BOS on it. Sure.
Wait, BIOS was not the... What was the spiritual
Gene-
predecessor to
You're thinking
OS.
Palm Pilots, aren't you?
8?
Next. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Next.
no,
Yeah,
next
Next
was OS 10. I thought BIOS had something to do with it, but was it the same guy
No,
who ran
all of them.
BIOS? Who ran BIOS?
Jean Louis Guess. I say his. I'll say his name wrong.
Gasset was with
Jean
Apple
Louis Gasset.
for a time.
Yes,
He's
but
Apple's
all of the
CEO.
operating systems that Apple was sort of test flighting for, where do we want to go next because we can't grow it in house, they were all, strangely enough, ex-Apple employees running all the companies, including Steve Jobs, Jean Louis. And
SA,
I think there was
yeah.
one more.
At least.
Yeah, I knew next.
I'm still
became
angry
Mac
about
OS
OS 2
10, but-
Warp.
Yes, you can. be
Well,
angry
you
about that.
should be.
You should be. It was way ahead of its time. It deserved more.
Yep.
What? Really? Okay.
It did. It actually did a lot of things right.
Yep.
I'm only familiar with the version that ran over the top of Microsoft's OS.
Windows. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
did they have a standalone OS
Oh, yeah.
too?
Well,
Okay.
you had to go way back, but
Okay. All right, speaking of going way back, we'll go back to the fashion trends of the 1970s with Jeremy
Oh, yes.
this week. Disco Elysium Final Cut. What is this?
Well, I mean, it's the final cut of Disco Elysium.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you haven't run into this game, it is freaking bizarre. It is, for the most part, interaction based. You're not running around shooting people. Good lord, it's actually probably good you don't have a gun. Although the way that you got rid of your gun is probably not the best way you could have done it. You are a horrible, horrible person, and it is a very incredibly odd and well-drawn game with just the most ridiculous choices, and anyone who's bitched and screamed about, I want a game where the choices that I make completely and totally change the game. Well, this is one that, you make some choices and it will happily kill you. As you start responding to people, the game changes. You will not get the same playthrough again. And it's bizarre. So the final cut, it's been out for just over a year now, I think. And they've added, they said, somewhere around another 1 million lines of spoken dialogue, a variety of new quests, fancy new equipment, and outfits to put on. Although in this case, the chances are the hat does some good things and some bad things. It's not just a pretty hat. In fact, there's not much you put on that is pretty. It's a little bit of a sale right now. If you already own the game, of course, you're immediately upgraded to the brand new one. Just give it a shot. It's bizarre. It is truly, truly strange. And if you can get your head around listening to people talk and reading through dialogue chains, you will really enjoy it.
how long does this take to play through?
I don't know.
What's a playthrough take? Or is there ever an ending?
I don't know. I started playing it and I got distracted with a bunch of other things. I had just finally gotten a plastic bag so I could start picking up empties to try and afford to be able to get into my
You should
hotel
try
room
putting
again.
a plastic bag in your head. That probably will help.
It was not an option, although give him some time, and that probably is actually one of the things he likes to do.
Okay.
We just don't know yet.
Is anybody excited about Sonos moving up to 2448?
No, and that's the point. You
I know,
shouldn't
because
be
nobody
excited
cares, and streaming services are not 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. 48 kilohertz is that standard sampling rate for video. What you're watching right now is probably 48 kilohertz 16-bit on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, I do 1648 for that as well. But
Yeah. Qobuz or Qbuzz or however the hell
Yeah, I
you
don't
want
know
to
how to
pronounce
pronounce
it, are claiming that they are actually streaming 24-bit 48 kilohertz FLAC tracks.
well,
to
I mean, it's not like we
Sonos
don't have the
devices.
bandwidth for it. Audio, significantly less bandwidth than video, even uncompressed. 2448 tracks on a Blu-ray, like Dolby True HD or something, is not that big.
Well,
It's
how-
over a
Well,
megabit.
you're not
How much
going to
was
hear the
the
damn
Super
thing.
Audio CD?
Yeah, but yes,
was what, 4.8
exactly.
gigs as well? SACD per disc?
No, SACD
Oh,
is
that
different
goes
'cause
way
it's
back.
1 bit and it's in the gigahertz.
Super audio.
It's 5 point
Yeah.
something gigahertz sampling on 1 bit instead of like 1624.
But no, I put this up because it is just one of those absolutely hilarious audiophile things where if you look at actually the math behind it and how your ears perceive sound, I'm sorry, but yeah, no, you aren't going to notice a damn thing. And if you do, well, there's a special blend of crystal formula that's been fine-tuned by ear to 0.01 grams, which you can use to, put underneath your audio equipment. It's a rock that separates it completely
Okay.
and isolates it from any
How
input or
about that
sound.
Denon Cat 5e cable?
Oh, I've got one better, Josh. I
For
dug
300
around and
$300
apparently
for a meter? Yeah.
$50,000 for 2 meters for Emperor Double Crown speaker cable. 2 meters, 50 grand. It's a deal, right?
I thought
Yeah.
I was living large when I was buying Monster Cable.
Yeah, well, it's gotten bigger.
There were a
Now,
couple of
speaking of that,
commenters.
I really,
on. Go ahead.
I really miss Radio Shack because they actually had
Oh,
pretty decent high gauge speaker cable there.
They surely
for
did.
inexpensive.
They did.
Best
Radio
Buy
Shack.
actually still has decent speaker cables in stock.
But anyway, sorry I interrupted you, Brett. Go on with what you were saying.
There were two commenters to this Sonus article that pointed out the exact same issue with the you're not going to hear it, and they referenced a study that had been done at one point, and the mathematics just didn't work out versus the human ear, especially as stupidly we decide to get older and our ability to hear highs and lows are just dramatically diminished. 15 kilohertz would be still good. 10 kilohertz.
There's
is
a
probably
huge
normal.
misunderstanding about this because
Please
sample
enlighten
rate
us.
when you're quantizing an analog signal to digital, when you're creating
yes.
ones and zeros out of an analog waveform. The sample rate is not the frequency. The sample rate is the frequency with which you sample the analog signal. And yes, a higher sample rate enables you to have a bigger spectrum of frequencies. But the importance is having a more accurate representation of an analog waveform, not having higher frequencies. And there's been a lot of FUD spread out there by companies who want to sell you on the fact that, for instance, if a pair of headphones can hit 30 kilohertz, then it gets into the HD audio range. And that's nonsense. Because I personally cannot hear above about 16 kilohertz. I used to be able to hear 18.
Yeah,
I probably haven't been able to hear
those
20 in
strange
forever.
interactions at
Well,
above when you, I mean,
That you
Because
can't
those are
hear.
harmonics. Those are harmonics, and
you
it's true.
can't hear, but there are physical interactions between waves that. But,
Right, but
yeah, but
I am-
it's
I'm with you, but I'm way more concerned about the bit depth than the sample rate. 44.1 is a great sample rate. I like, 48 is better. Technically, 96 is better. Anytime you can sample the audio
Yeah.
more times, it's going to be a more accurate representation of that original waveform. But
True. That is
the
true.
word length of only 16-bit, it's quite limiting as far as the total, the different variations of amplitude that you can have. 24-bit
The
takes it
maximal and minimal values.
way beyond it. It's
Yeah.
isn't that
levels of magnitude
Mantissa?
beyond it.
We're talking Mantissa, I think, is the correct
That is a mathematical term.
term. Anyway, but no, I mean, if you're limited to 16-bit,
Nope, that one isn't
it's like
coming
it's like in visual HDR. Going from 8-bit to 10-bit. It's a massive difference, just because the eyes can do colors and brightness levels. It's that same thing with audio.
But then there's the other argument, which is the source.
Oh,
Because
sure.
nowadays,
Oh,
music, the
interesting.
dynamic
Yeah.
range starts at 98% and tries to get up to 110. There is no quiet. There is no
it's-
range in music anymore. And that's about the only way this would actually make some bit of a difference as you're crossing over different harmonic levels. But
It's totally irrelevant because you're playing this through a Sonos. I don't think there's any difference listening to a Sonos in somebody's
yes.
room. A 256-bit or kilobit MP3 playing over some streaming service versus CD quality audio or higher. I don't know if you're going to hear the difference over one of those little speakers. It's not an audiophile system. This is something to showcase HD audio, to make the system look more appealing to people who want to switch over because of the
Sure.
convenience factor of streaming. It's
Let's
tremendously
talk about what's going on inside
convenient.
your room. Your room has just ruined it. So it's all over.
Yeah, that's another discussion. But yeah, I mean, I love it when people look down their noses at high resolution audio and say that, well, studies have been shown. Right, studies have been shown you can throw away 90% of the audio and it still sounds okay, because you can do psychoacoustic masking of certain frequencies that are less prominent than other frequencies that we're hearing in real time. But I'm just interested in the audio reproduction itself from the standpoint of if you're going to archive something digitally, do it at a really high bit rate, really
Well,
high sample
yes.
rate, because then it's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot closer to that analog tape. And then when the analog tape is destroyed in a warehouse fire,
Again,
you haven't really lost anything because you backed it up in such a high resolution format that it sounds identical, right down to the tape hiss and the clicks and everything else. So
But to use it as an advertisement to sell your $200 wireless speaker.
yeah, I know it's
I spent years dealing with this with the human visual system. Different sensing
Well, that's
organs,
even
but
crazier.
similar-
And don't even bring
similar
green into it.
problems. Or blue. Blue.
Or-
We have
well,
terrible
better
memory for
green.
blue.
Let's take a break here from this inane babble to hear from podcast sponsor number 2 this week. We had a second one, sneaked it in there on me. Helix
Did.
Sleep was number
Nope,
1.
that was the
This is
first one.
Text Expander, yep.
The
I'll
second
fade it
one
out
is
before this.
indeed Text Expander. So thanks very much for that. Work smarter with Text Expander.
Mercifully, the podcast is almost over. I hope. Well, we're in our last half hour. I promise.
Now this it really
we
goes
can speed
downhill
it up.
from here.
Let's quickly touch on the last couple of topics here.
There's really
what
only
is
one I
this?
really want you to bring up.
What is this?
I don't want you to bring up this
Oh,
version.
okay. No, come on. We're not doing.
I want you to
we're not
bring up
doing
the other
April 1st
version.
stuff.
Go to the other version of this.
No.
Yes,
What
please.
other version?
We're
Why do
not
you do
gonna do
multiple
it.
links for the same thing?
The one that says use one, this one
Because
instead.
one is special.
One is very special. Kent made this one. Kent
Use
wrote
this
this
one
article.
instead.
Yes, the one
I'm
that
not
says use
logged
this
into
one
the site
instead.
editor.
Well, that's not going to work.
Well,
Because if I published it, it would have gone to like Twitter.
you don't want this on
No,
Twitter.
that link
I-
is just that old.
I know that.
GeForce
That's why you have to
1080
be logged
article.
Yeah.
in. You got to be logged in, man.
Anyway,
He's not playing nicely, is he?
Oh man,
He's
no,
not.
it's
I logged
and
out
Kent-
so we don't have that bar on everything. So let me log back
I know, but
in.
This is you have to just this once.
I don't have to.
Well, no, you don't have to. You truly don't. You should look at this first before you decide to broadcast it, though.
Brother.
Oh, God, no.
And it might be the last podcast I'm ever invited to. Who knows?
Indeed, it probably will be.
Okay, let me click on the link again now that I'm logged in.
Ba, 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 ba.
Jeremy's seen it clearly.
It'll light up your
Gosh,
life.
that's-
Oh yeah, that's
Sounds
that.
so
We've seen that picture.
excited.
Anybody who's visited our Discord community in the last couple of years has seen this picture.
You're not going to read this one?
Enhanced.
You play the video?
I'm enhanced. Are we gonna play the video? Ugh,
Yeah,
okay.
you can play the video.
Yep. So
Tired of your
don't
dull,
want you.
boring hair.
Dull, terrible. Oh, glow up, man. Get new Razer RGB hair flow nanotech.
No,
Comes
this
with
is
remote
compatible
controller.
with their glasses, right?
It is not.
That's just ridiculous.
I liked
It's
the
totally
elite
different.
reference to the number of
Elite,
ingredients
yeah.
there.
It's
The-
13.
You know what?
final
Honestly,
paragraph
if this
in the-
was real and it was app controlled, this would be awesome.
Right.
You could just walk
But-
around, like pull up your smartphone and be like, I want blue hair right now. I want purple hair. Now I want pink hair.
I think
But-
I can be
your
any
hair would have
anime
to be
girl
a
I
certain
want to be.
length to be able
Oh, yeah.
to self-generate the electricity to
Yep.
to be able to change and communicate.
Yeah.
So
That's
short-haired
right up on
guys
this.
like me,
Limited.
yeah,
yeah, short-haired
Oh,
guys.
it's discrimination
With
against
flowing
Josh.
locks
That's true.
will be able
They-
to-
They need to
Yeah,
have
no.
like an RGB headband so that anybody.
No,
article
subdermal
clearly
implants.
states that Razer is working on a solution for Josh. They have they've got a two-pay version of it coming out. They're going to bring
Shatner
back
version.
a name from a dead product line. They're going to call it the Orb Weaver.
Ooh, I like it. The Merkins will be sold under that name as well.
Okay. All right. See,
oh lord,
it always comes
they
down
got
to
to be
that too.
waterproof though.
People of a
You'd want
certain
'em to be.
age seem to have a thing about Merkins. I don't know why.
You'll find out.
I don't. I
Not
won't.
for a few
Actually, I
years
won't
yet,
find
but-
out. All right. Let's see.
All right. I'm going back in. I'm hitting
Lord.
publish on this one. It's going to Twitter.
No, please. Okay. The Volts. Why not? Who cares? The Volkswagen thing that
This
I heard
was
about the
stupid.
other day. Apparently, oh, I don't want to sign up for anything. No, thank you.
Just no thanks on that.
Apparently that was fake. I mean, it's so
Yeah,
it's
but
so
some
it's
auto
a late
journalists
March
got-
joke, guys. Sorry.
Yeah,
They got their butt hairs in a twist because
Oh,
of
yeah.
this. I can't
Yeah.
believe you lied to AP and these New York Times reporters and Auto Trend and me, some guy from Jalopnik. I'm so angry. It's like, come on, take a joke. Can't be serious about anything
Hey,
anymore.
we don't do April Fools anymore because of COVID, Josh.
I just think the Germans did not quite understand April Fools 2 days early. I don't think that they
Yeah,
understood
2 days.
And-
Well, I
Well,
think
Well,
it
this
leaked
was
early,
Volkswagen
didn't it?
America.
It was a leak.
I'm sure the Germans had no idea what was going on.
Well, they
I
do
mean,
now.
they're very well known
They
for their
do
sense
now.
of humor.
I don't even know what was
I
happening.
don't know, that one German comedian lady is pretty funny. You know, that's cutting
We
the
don't want to get into
peppers.
any more trouble.
She you know, her kid comes crying and she
kids,
rubs
the
it.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, she makes
she
me
was
laugh
hilarious.
every time.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a set of Volkswagen commercials back in the 80s or 90s that was Germans don't do comedy. And one of the jokes I actually found funny, it was how many German engineers did it take to change a light bulb? 0 if manufactured correctly.
Right. It's not funny at all.
The three Unpimp Your Auto commercials were hilarious.
Oh, snap.
But half of that was the actor that they did, who was what, Swedish?
I believe
Norwegian?
it was.
I can't remember.
Yeah, oh, he
remember his name,
was.
though.
He was sweet or a Dane. And
Hilarious.
Yeah. Hilarious guy.
Time to unpimp the auto.
Das
Yeah.
Pimp das Auto. We just
Accents are
dropped it
always
like
funny,
it's
aren't they?
hot.
It doesn't work without the accent. Not to us Americans.
Doesn't.
Okay, Brett. It's time for Brett's traditional competing review. Avid site readers will notice that every time a major release happens, Brett has a review that morning. And so you have the option of reading about power supplies or Intel processors. And honestly, the power supplies might be more interesting this time. Brett, tell us more.
Well, I have to say that you're right, and that the last couple of times that sort of like there's been a big announcement of a potentially popular item, it's same day where there's been an embargo lift on something that I was reviewing at the same time. So just weird coincidence, I would say. So
I
these
don't know
guys-
what these companies don't get together for some reason and share
No,
their
for
embargoes
some
with each
reason they don't.
other. Isn't that weird?
No, it's like suddenly they like have their own schedules and they're like, oh yeah, this date sounds pretty good, and then like Intel steps all over them or Nvidia or somebody like that. So I did my best at pretending to be a power supply reviewer. I admit that it's not been my forte, but I did my best to try and stress the hell out of them until they broke, which I did.
Just use them for mining.
Which is
That's what everybody does with high power supplies, right? That's why they're so freaking expensive right now.
Yeah, but I mean, if you could buy one and you wanted a power system with one, these are fairly reasonable. Although, as I tested out, I would suggest that they use the 650 in a mid-range system and keep your overclocks to a minimum. I was able to actually, cause the 650 to fail to a certain point where it would literally, that you're kind of doing your overclock and you've gotten your motherboard or your GPU to a point where it's like, oh, it just reset and it reboots. You're thinking like, okay, if I just dial this in just a little bit more, maybe a little less voltage here or a little bit more current there, depends on what it is that you're doing, or a little bit less clock speed, or I'm going to nail this. I'm going to get it in. I'm going to get it dialed in. Weirdly enough, and this is the first time I've ever had a chance to do this, I got a system to that point where it was snap resetting, and all I did was I pulled the 650, kept all the settings that were causing the system to reset, and put this 850 in. And you know what? It ran just fine. That may be obvious in retrospect, but I've never had a chance to take two power supplies that are almost identical internally. And actually, I have some open pictures on the review that shows the board level. They're pretty much almost identical, except for a few capacitors and the sizes of certain components in there.
The
And
true
swap
time
one for the other.
modular is actually handy, right?
It is. It was sort of very interesting for me
Pop, pop,
to,
pop, and away you go.
yeah, and to discover that, like, you know what? Sometimes, no matter how much tweaking you do, when you're convinced that I'm this close to my perfectly dialed overclock, it might be your power supply that's holding you back. Hey, I like that one. That picture right there that you just went by, the one that's just above this one,
Yeah.
where I happen to mention. You gotta dismiss that upper right-hand corner. This one where I said, oh, the one that says danger, high voltage, don't tamper with this, essentially. It was hiding a screw. At least that told me which ones that I needed to remove to get the case off. So
Mm-hmm.
thanks for that.
Well, typically the tamper evident screws, like the stickers are over the screw. Yes. So
Well, there's other, maybe you saw it in a picture, but there was another set just beside it, and I wasn't sure, like, well, which set is holding the case together and which one's holding the fan. So, yeah, that was actually
yes,
helpful.
Brett has this week learned that the screws that hold a PSU together are different from the ones that secure the fan to the metal
What, I knew
frame.
that. I just
the
didn't know
PSU.
which one was which, and it was helpful to
Okay,
have the don't take this
let's
apart.
get back into this review. Let's guide us through the interior of these power supplies as I shrink the picture instead of making it larger.
Oh, I know. It's just based upon the size. But anyway, the 650s on the left, the 850s on the right, and they're pretty much the board is identical between them. The capacitors are a little bit sized a little bit differently. The
Who made
transformers
these?
a
Are
little
these
bit
Lead
differently.
Tech? Or who made these?
They're all Japanese. I can't remember the manufacturer of the
Nichicon?
caps.
It'd
They're
be
the
caps,
Nichicon,
right? But
sure.
usually there's a board, like a PSU.
Rose
I
Roll.
could not see
Foundation.
I couldn't see. Yeah.
Okay.
It was Rosebud. I couldn't see who was making the board, but I did take a picture of the board IDs, and they're the same between the two of them.
Okay.
So, the 1,000-watt power supply is actually different. That's slightly longer, and they needed a different board layout. So for that one, but all of the ones from 550 to I guess 850, this particular range goes in. So 550, 650, 750, 850 are all on the same board.
I will point out, since I don't think you mentioned it yet, for audio listeners or video viewers, these are there is an existing RM series, and there's an RM 1000X, 850X. This
Yep,
is the
good point.
2021 version, and for some reason they're retaining the old branding exactly. So the RM
Yes.
1000X 2021 is different from the RM 1000X that we've been using for years on our test beds here.
Which is a good point. These things do have a longevity. So skipping right to the end, really, my advice is probably buy a bigger power supply than you think you need, and it's probably worth it, especially if you're an enthusiast who's going to be overclocking. These things last a good long time, and the Corsair brand, and sort of, we've been using them to power a variety of systems for a long time, and I've personally been a fan in personal environments and systems before I started doing reviews and things like that, and they've been good quality, and they've lasted through several systems. Oh, here's the mad scientist view of me testing.
I'm
the power
just
supply.
curious as to this laptop. Did you borrow this from a family member? Because this is not a Mac.
No, that is in fact my laptop that I usually use to plug into different environments and different external systems like cars and stuff like that. I use that to do car diagnostics and capture.
Oh, okay. So when you
Stuff,
actually need to get
yeah.
work done, I get it. You're not using a
Well,
Mac for
different
that.
kinds of work. When I'm actually doing other kinds of work, I'm usually using a Mac.
Okay,
what
so
I did during the testing.
jumping in here,
Yeah, go
and
ahead,
I've got to jump in here.
please.
Do
Oh,
you
you're the
remember
power
like
supply?
5 years ago? Stop it, Jeremy. Stop it. 5 years ago, when we were at a point, Intel processors were 65 to 93 watts, usually 65 to 77 was total. The latest GeForce 900 series were not pulling any more than 175, and people were saying 650 watt power supply is overkill for everything you can buy,
Josh. I remember
including
buying
AMD.
300 watt power supplies. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but that was back in 1997 when 300 was a massive amount of power. But I'm just
Yeah, I
talking
suppose you're
even
right.
just 6 years ago. I mean, we started going up to, early 2000s, 1,000 watt power supply. because we had multi GPU and all this other stuff. And then everything got more efficient around 2015, and now we're moving back on up. We've got 320 watt video cards, 350 watt, 400 if you remove all the safeties and you know, stinking Intel with their CPUs, or 250 watt. Yeah, no, it's kind of funny to see how we have swung back into you need a bigger power supply.
You're
I
totally
mean,
right
when's the
about
last
that.
time you made fun of a kilowatt power supply?
Not so much
Yeah.
anymore. Part of my
No.
review was actually going through different GPUs and noting total system draw through the measurement device I was using, which is a Passmark. And with it, I'll give you the mid range, the 2080 GPU. I was seeing total system power usage of around 430, 435 watts, which was handled reasonably well by the 650 that I had. Then I put in a Vega Frontier, and anybody who's familiar with the Vega architecture knows
But
how
you got to
power hungry
undervolt
they are.
it.
I love the voice that you used because that's exactly what I heard in my head. No, that was not what I was after. I specifically did not undervolt it simply because I wanted to present a challenging load to the power supplies to see how they reacted. And this was the one that finally got the 650 to keel over and snap off. So mission accomplished.
There you
Thank you,
go.
Vega Frontier.
Well,
But the
yeah,
850
I mean,
ran it.
well, you should have got like a 480. Get a GTX 480. No, the AMD Radeon 295X2.
Yeah,
Yeah, you get
have
into
one of
those
those?
dual GPU things.
I have a 580. I had a
Oh.
580 I could have used. That would have been kind of midline.
Isn't that the
but I had
690?
The 690 is the dual.
That was
No.
690 was a
NVIDIA.
dual NVIDIA. NVIDIA.
Yeah.
I did run it with a 1070. Very typical, very modest. I'd say if you had a 1070 style, of that era and that level and even compared with the 10700K that I had in the system and all the other kind of cards and things that I had going on, and I even had Corsair RGB stuff. It doesn't really draw
Poor.
a ton, but
What was the 10700 running without power limits or with power limits enforced?
power limits enforced.
See,
Well,
so if you
for
take off power
1070.
limits, which is the default behavior, then you need another 50 to 75
Well,
watts.
I did that when I went to the Vega because I got tired of it continuing to work.
Okay, so then you're like, okay, well, no power limits and a Vega with no undervolting. Now we need a
Exactly.
bigger power supply, which they would have told you anyway.
Well,
I
I-
don't think 650 is really the ideal.
It was not, but
In that
at least
circumstance.
it proved the point that that's actually the case, and that there's a legitimate reason. Hey, don't feel bad about buying a 1,000-watt power supply. Just you might want to consider
Well,
it.
you would
especially
feel
if you're
bad
an
about buying a
enthusiast.
1,000-watt power supply when A, they're out of stock everywhere, and B, when you find
True.
one, they're $300.
Yeah, they're damn expensive, unfortunately.
They are very.
But
850 is the
if
new
your aim,
number.
it is, and it worked reasonably well. I would have no qualms about saying, yeah, 850 we handled it, and that's obscene. I don't know how the new 30 series will react, or the new AMD system. I don't know. I look
Yeah,
forward to
you'll
being able
find
to
out.
test those
I'll
at some
send you
point.
that 3080. But the instantaneous power draw from a 3080
Mm-hmm.
is quite high. It will peak well over 400 watts.
Yeah.
So
I
you have to be
expect
able
it
to.
will.
You have to be able to withstand that, because if you're parting out and this is irrelevant because you can't buy one. But if you were to be building a system and you wanted a 3080, just because it has a 320 watt TDP does not mean that it will not hit 460 watts at times. So
Exactly.
you have to be
Exactly. And
able
that's
to
what
account
some
for
of
that.
my very small amount of testing turned out to be. And I'd like to get a little bit better at it, in that kind of figure out a test suite that I could do something that would be repeatable. I pointed out that I didn't graph anything because I did not have a repeatable scenario that I could say, hey, these things are comparable. I was sort of just feeling my way through it until
Yeah.
I was recording peaks, but not kind of a scenario. So
Lee
I'll
had
get better at it.
a entire table full of equipment,
Yeah.
generating loads of whatever wattage. and
$50,000 worth
temperature
of
you
stuff,
wanted.
or wherever he
and well over that, I'm sure, when it was new.
Yeah.
But
I'm no Lee Garbett.
yeah, Lee,
But-
it's kind of a specialized thing too. Like, even I don't know how many people are left who do old school power supply reviews with all the test equipment, and it's so expensive.
Yeah,
They're-
even what we were
Johnny
doing
Guru
here
is the only one I know
wasn't-
of.
Well, he
Yeah.
works for Corsair now, right?
Well, the
I
website's
may have
still
been-
there.
The website's still there, yeah. But
I may have been in touch with them because I had some questions about something I was seeing, and I actually contacted Corsair and had a discussion with them about some readings that I was getting, and we had a reasonable conversation between myself and them, and I actually reached out to Passmark with some questions. So that's going to be an ongoing thing, and so I think testing power supplies for us will be refined over time. We'll see how that goes.
Got to have the taste test involved now, though.
I did not lick
Once you
anything
get it out, just
during-
lick it and see how it
did
does.
you
There
attempt
were-
to weld anything with either
No,
of them?
Yes,
there
our
were
fault.
very few exposed wires during this.
The
Although if you bring up the
650
picture,
plus the 850 together.
yeah, I should have.
Could it weld?
That's not how you
Probably.
alternate current.
Well,
You gods.
just wire them in series.
Yeah. But anyway, I was
All
pleased
right.
to do it, and I have no trouble at all saying this is probably going to be enough. You should buy something in this zone. It's going to serve you well.
Honestly, I think that kind of testing is probably more useful if you're saying, hey, with this GPU and then with this GPU, because people want to know how much was the total draw, what's the headroom, was it reliable? If you ran it for a long time under real world conditions and it was fine.
Yeah.
You know, samples vary. You might get a
Right.
bad PSU, but
And-
that's why you have
and just to
warranties.
say it out
I suddenly
loud,
got a 200-watt load to it, just for a blip.
and just to say it out loud, just because not everybody might read the article, I pushed these with a full ATA64 suite with everything turned on, FPU testing, CPU crush, all of it, and I also ran DX11 Unigen Heaven in 1080p Ultra, full tessellation, ultra sampling, multi-tap, subsampling in a window next to each other, just so that I had pretty much everything stressed out, memory tests and GPU going. Then I had I plugged in some case fans, even though I had an open air system, and I had a 10 gig NIC in there as well. I had a 280 AIO with a pump and two 140 RGB fans, just to kind of try and simulate as best I could as, hey, this is a load that the system or this power supply might experience from a system in real life. And then I sampled the whole thing using an inline power supply tester, which is a Passmark unit, which has a instantaneous readout on a screen that you can sort of page through and see what's going on from a voltages and overall load perspective, as well as a piece of software that I ran on a laptop, which connects to that via USB and gives all kinds of instantaneous output readings and allows me to capture that to a CSV file. I'll get better at it.
I just wish Passmark had a PSU tester that was more modern as far as like power draw, like more than one PCI
You have to run two of them in parallel.
Right, but there should be a single unit.
You're right.
It's not a expensive device. I think it's around $360 or something like that. But
It's something like that. Yeah, $300, $400. Mhm.
but you'd think they'd offer a higher tier device that's like, now this is the one that's designed for PSUs up to 1500 watts, because the individual
Granted.
one it's basically for like a 500 watt PSU. Got
I didn't
one
have any
SATA,
trouble with the
one
850.
8-pin, a 24 pin
Yeah.
ATX, and just one EPS. Is it 8-pin? Or is it
They've
4-pin
updated
on
that.
one?
It's only a single EPS, but they've updated a little
Oh.
bit and include at least dual
Oh,
PCIe.
the new one has
now.
that? Okay.
Yes, I had to buy one because I needed to get this done.
Yes. All right. Picks of the week.
To keep us going on, let me just add one more thing.
Yes.
Angus Young turned 62 today.
You gods.
His brother passed away several years ago, right?
Yes, he
Yeah.
did. Malcolm.
Yeah.
And he was the
Malcolm.
taller of the two at 5'3".
That's why the pants look funnier on him.
I think you might need to explain who these people are.
Excuse
Josh.
me. I hear upset
If
cats.
you don't know, then you don't need to know. Picks of the week.
Yeah, you
Right.
don't
Oh,
need
wait,
to.
no.
You
Hold
can
on.
look it up.
Yeah.
Let's
Jeremy
move along.
just left to go get something.
Cats
He
fighting.
heard upset cats.
Uh-oh.
But, I
We have
can
a
go.
cat break. You can go.
He
All
was
right. Picks of the
thunderstruck.
week.
Thunderstruck.
Okay,
made the
it's
move.
National Backup Day or something like that. And so Newegg and Amazon had some good prices, and the Samsung 980 for the 1 terabyte, it's like $50 off. Goes from $229 to $179. Their 2 terabyte is, I think, what, $349? These are pretty good prices for PCIe 4.0 stuff that works well. So yeah, if you're looking to get a nice, solid 4.0 NVMe, it's a good time to get one because the prices are significantly lower. And I've got dogs barking, so move on to Jeremy while I pause and see what the heck's going on.
There's no Jeremy to move on to.
Oh, the cats
We're
went
gonna
really
go to-
His
crazy.
cats are
I'll
hissing
take
at your
it.
dogs.
Here, wait. I'll kill some time
Yeah.
here. While I was at Micro Center, Josh, I also bought. I'm going to take my finger off this in a second.
Hold on.
I
Oh,
also brought it.
yeah, 850.
Yeah, which is pretty reasonable for a PCIe. For a poor man's PCIe 3. 3.0.
Oh, it's a 750. It's not the 850.
Sorry, it's a 750. Yep.
Oh, okay.
But that'll be
moving
enough
on.
for me.
Yeah.
You bought a
That'll be enough for me.
750. You're
I did.
upstaging Jeremy's pick. He's not even here to defend himself.
No.
With
Oh,
your inferior
sorry.
Intel
Yeah.
PCIe Gen 3
but
apologist.
look at this-
Hey, the
SSD.
670 rocks, man.
Look at what they just to prove that Micro Center is not always. And I'll tell the other side of this in a second. This is what it was stickered at. You see that?
Yeah,
That aim focus.
Yeah,
79.99.
179.
179. That's too much money.
That's pretty expensive for
I
PCIe
know.
What did you
3.0 1
actually
terabyte.
pay for it?
124.
Okay, that's about where it should be.
That's fair.
Yeah. Well, prices are increasing actually on this, and I think it's because all of them are stuck on the ship in a Suez Canal. So the supply is getting short on that, including power supplies.
The
Which, by
fog
the
is
way,
getting
I just-
thicker. And Leon's
I
getting
just got-
larger.
I just got this from Be Quiet. Oh my god, it's so heavy. What is
1,000
this?
watts.
This is a
That's
straight
rare.
power 1,000.
That
Yep.
is a rare
I gotta
piece of hardware
know.
you have there.
put it down
Sometimes
before it breaks my arms.
Yeah, so one day I will need to replace my Mushkin 1000 watt power supply.
Hint,
They don't
hint,
make power supplies.
hint.
But
They
I gotta test
probably
that,
never
so-
did. They probably just had
Well, of course not, but yeah.
LEDX or Seasonic or FSP.
It's
The
true.
usual suspects. Hey Brett, since you've
Flower.
been
What's the flower one?
Super
not
flower?
sunflower.
LEDX.
Superflower.
Superflower.
Was that-
Superflower makes the
Superflower.
LEDX.
Okay,
That's right.
Brett.
Yep.
What is your pick? Since Jeremy apparently has left us.
My pick is having to do. Are you down with the struggle regarding controlling your freaking RGBs on all of your different devices? Your motherboard, your RAM, your GPU, your fans. You know what? There might be an alternative. It's called OpenRGB. There's a crew of people out there who have tasked themselves with reverse engineering all of the I2C protocols that sneak around inside your system on a back channel USB bus that talks to your RAM and talks to your GPU and talks to the motherboard and sets colors and patterns and things. And they've shouldered the burden of trying to sidestep all of the conflicts between the different RGB controllers and this other stuff that software tends to do to your system by running weird stuff in the background and asking you to sign into cloud environments. It's painful. Let me tell you, this software system potentially might help. Go take a look at this thing and run it on your system and see if it works. It's all command line, of course, so you need to be an adult about it and just stop clicking on things. Type at it, damn it.
Okay, that's offensive, but
Will it,
I
uh,
understand.
Will
You're
it
coming from.
control Sebastian's hair color? That's the question.
Absolutely. Yes, it will.
I'm working on creating the ultimate blank canvas for RGB color because my hair is rather rapidly starting to go gray in spots. You can't really tell in the video, but
That'll help with the RGBs, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It
'cause
will.
This is too dark. I need lighter hair to, because we're talking about reflective light here. Now, if I can go
time
with
will help
like
you.
uh,
Time.
clear hair, totally devoid of mass.
Look at Josh.
Like what Josh has. The ultimate platform. The ultimate RGB platform. The palm of his hand. Polish that baby up.
Phrasing.
I know. I'm chasing as fast as I can.
My hairline, it just won't recede no matter what I do.
Damn it, man.
Kent apparently has the same problem. I mean, look at Kent and Jeremy down there with all that luscious hair. And then
You think so, but
Hmm.
there are things happening underneath that you're not aware of.
uh-oh. Okay. You mean down lower?
Oh,
where the
well,
mercantile
I wasn't
came
going
from?
back to
don't
that.
wanna know.
You got
I don't
upset
wanna know.
last time. I was
It's not
sticking
this-
with this.
You said
I repeat,
down
this
below.
is not this kind of channel.
You know
Yes,
it is
it
that
is.
kind of channel.
All right.
This show is not for children
No.
or adults
No, it's made by
with any
children.
taste
I
whatsoever.
don't know who it's for. I don't know who this is for.
Jeremy had a pick that will be completely foreign to anyone who's been watching for the last 10 minutes.
He was gone. He doesn't know.
Does he? Okay.
It's just a very slow day for picking up hardware because, well, you can't freaking buy anything but SSDs right now. And so if you're in Canada, there is actually a nice sale on both the SN850s, and if the price is like the 1 terabyte is about 40% off, the 2 terabytes 36-ish% off or so. So well worth it picking it up, and if it's a little bit too rich for you, or you run Intel, the 750s are also on sale for about the equivalent discount, but about half the price. So it's the only component you can buy nowadays, so why not?
Not true. You can also buy CPU coolers. Isn't that right, Kent?
You can. And Newegg currently has a sale on the Cooler Master ML240 that I reviewed about a year and a half ago for the website. It's a very good cooler. The pump on it was actually extremely quiet. The only problem I had with it were the fans were a little noisy, but right now it's $80 with a $25 mail-in rebate, so you can get a very good performing 240 millimeter AIO for $55.
And then
We
buy whatever
installed
fans
this-
you want.
And
We
buy
installed this
whatever
on a,
fans you want.
On a PC here with a 9900K, and it did really, really well. The pump was really quiet. The only problem we had was the fans were a little noisy.
It almost sounds like there's an echo in here. That's the
I
thing.
just couldn't hear 'em over the
performance
fans.
is great if you let the fans get to like 45, 50 decibels. But
Yeah.
you can put
I just
quieter
figured it's
fans
because
on it. They make good. They
we
make
had
good
it in the
stuff.
roof. We hung them upside down. I don't know. I thought maybe
Actually-
the bearings were loaded in a weird way.
That was the problem with the fans on this unit. It actually wasn't the normal fan noise at the higher RPMs. That was actually pretty reasonable. It was the bearings in it. It had sleeve bearings that were just very noisy, and even at low speeds, they were noisy.
Yeah, they make a wobble sound or whatever. But yeah,
Oh, that's gonna be hard to bear.
yeah.
At least
He
they're not
writes a
noisy
lot
as
of
my
his own
kittens out there
titles.
fighting.
Yeah, Jeremy writes all of his own material, just so you know.
Yeah. Nobody writes this for him.
No one would.
Is there anything
This is
else?
why we drink heavily.
Yeah, well, apparently.
One of the reasons.
No mas.
Consensus
No
pick
mas.
from Picks of the Week. It was buy a WD SSD because everybody's been talking about it. Or a Samsung
Jeremy
980
didn't know
Pro.
that.
Get a Gen 4
He
SSD
didn't
while you
know.
can before they become scarce like everything else.
Josh picked a 980, so I don't know what you're talking about with Western
Okay,
Digital stuff.
well, Brett was going on and on about his 750 that he got for his Intel system. So
I don't remember.
it was
That
a
Probably
Intel
didn't
slash
happen.
Micro Center rant. I
Oh,
kind
what
of
else is new?
actually
Apple was involved
That-
somehow.
Yeah,
That
Of
okay,
course.
that also happened.
he made
That
the
also
purchase. He reserved the purchase on his Apple M1 powered MacBook.
That's
I'm
that's
glad I was out there listening
fabrication.
to three cats screaming and
Oh,
yelling
you're
at each
still on
other
an
instead.
Intel MacBook.
fake news.
All right. Hey, I'm on an Intel MacBook. I have a 2015 Core, not Core 2 Duo. It's a Core i5, but it's a dual core MacBook Pro.
It's 10 o'clock.
It's midnight for me.
All right,
I know, so it's
That's-
even worse. So
it
let's
is.
cut it off.
cut it off. All right, cut it off. Right when you said cut
it's
it off, that's
done.
when it's going to get cut off. And I won't even put a
done.
bumper music on this week. I'm hitting the record button, stop recording, yes.
I like the cricket sound that you threw in there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was a throwback to the gym era when we had Soren add
yeah.
crickets to
I
those
remember that
long
one.
pauses. we
Oh,
used to do in
yes.
between stories.
Where Jim kind of led into the, hey, what do you guys think? And then it's a bit round robin of nobody saying anything.
I'm so
I should
disappointed
know better
that
because
Sebastian
generally-
didn't read the end of that article.
He
Well,
didn't.
we're still broadcasting.
And you know what? Kent worked hard on that for like 7 minutes, maybe 8.
It wasn't just a repost of their PR. Okay, well, if you
No,
wrote
no,
it-
no, it
you
wasn't.
wrote
No,
it,
he
then-
actually wrote it. And
It's
and
my
instead
April
of me,
Fool's article.
instead of me putting in a healthy quip into our email, I actually spent time transcribing the document that Kent sent, and so that we could have that
brother.
post. Now, don't you feel guilty now?
Look, I already have a reputation of being a jackass, so this doesn't help anything.
You know what? As far as you know, nobody said that.
Anybody who's had any long-term contact with me would say so. I mean, my own sister refers to me only with a... If you've ever been a member of our Discord community, you may know. When I'm asked to do things, I'm ordered to do them, and profanity is involved. There was a famous email that I received that I shared with the chat. It was simply a document, because her printer wasn't working. It was a document, and the text of the email was, "Print it, bitch." That's all she said. I printed it, too. The next day
And
she
did you-
stopped
you
by
did?
and picked it up, because she needed it.
Wow. That's how to get stuff done.
That's the
I think there's
family,
websites dedicated to just that kind of brother-sister relationship.
right? I mean, it's at least
Again,
it's
not that
a
kind of
weird
podcast.
one. It's weird the other way. It's like extremely. I mean, I feel like I know she cares. She just doesn't show it, but I can read between the lines.
Still fooling yourself after all these years. It's good
Yeah, I
to see.
think so.
Yep.
My other sister doesn't talk to me at all, so at least I have one. Where is this article? Oh, you said you were publishing it.
Oh, you wanted me to publish it. Oh, okay.
It would make it easier to find.
I set it to 1
It
year
is
ago
midnight.
today so that it did
April
not
1st.
come up to the top.
It should be published right now because it's after midnight East
I'm s-
Coast.
Are you still logged in, or do you want me to actually?
Yeah, I
publish
just
it?
logged back in.
the links.
Okay,
in the,
Razer
staff.
Rapunzel Chroma. The tech news this week has been almost exclusively dedicated to Intel's release of their 11th Gen Core processors. Code
Put in
named
Rocket Lake.
Rocket Sad
Sad
Lake.
Panda.
Well, I mean, we have the author on our podcast. Kent, you have to read this for us.
Yes, he should probably read it. Although I editorialized that particular part.
What? So there's
Yes.
some Brett in this as well. Okay.
Only that part. That was it.
Okay.
The tech news this week has been almost exclusively dedicated to Intel's release of their 11th generation Core processors, codenamed Rocket Trash Panda Lake. Sadly, all this focus has taken attention away from the real advances in gaming technology. On March 31st, 2021, Razer unveiled their new Rapunzel Chroma hair products. The new RGB hair coloring allows users to control the coloring and special effects in their hair with the Chroma mobile app. We truly live in the greatest time to be a gamer in history. Who cares that you can't buy a new or used GPU? Not to be left on the sidelines during such an advancement, the PC Perspective staff have fully invested in Razer's new technology. Our editor-in-chief, Sebastian Peak, has signed an exclusive agreement with Razer to endorse Rapunzel products. You need to keep scrolling down, Sebastian.
Scroll, please.
After signing the
Okay,
new
all right.
after signing the new contract with Razer, Sebastian said, "I've always felt like I needed more RGB in my life, and there is no greater platform to show off this new technology than my perfectly styled coiffure." Razer CEO Min Ling Tan said, "We at Razer have always wanted to pull Sebastian away from his Corsair IQ products, and now with Rapunzel, we've been able to do just that." Part of the new agreement means that in all future podcasts, Jeremy and I will have our long locks adorned in glorious chroma illumination. The same is true for Brett's beard. Razer is currently working on a chroma-capable toupee for Josh.
Lovely.
That's cruel and unusual.
But hey, Josh, you can always leave. Podcast is over. You don't have to take this. I mean, I'm not asking.
Sudden dawning of realization.
I do want to go to bed,
Wait.
but
And if I offended any of my fellow podcasters here, I apologize.
don't
But not
apologize.
sincerely.
No, that's weak. No.
No, you have to own it. You own
Yeah,
this.
exactly. Like,
You did put me up to posting it though, but I didn't actually publish it, only so
Oh.
that Sebastian could see it.
oh.
I
Yeah.
should publish it though.
April 1st is canceled. 2021 is canceled. GPUs are canceled.
Never mind then. Humor has been canceled.
My
Yeah.
only fear of if you had published it is that some people would either think that it was a real thing, which apparently some people have watched that video and think that it is, and
I'm shocked.
I'm not.
No.
And or some people would think that we thought it was a real thing.
Oh, by the way, it looks like Josh has actually left us. I just realized that's a static image. It's
He
gone.
did.
Well, you told
I
him
set
he
this
could
to-
leave.
I told him
and he did.
we could all leave. This is the after show. We can all leave at any time.
I set it to publish at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
No.
Job done.
Hey, it's Razor's fault, not ours.
That's true.
I don't have the technology, Code Sloth, to show the top of Josh's head. I can show you a close up of Josh's final moments on the podcast.
Could there be any musical accompaniment here?
I wish. I need to go back to using a little mixer because I could live mix in.
Hey, there was a
musical-
suggestion that we sort of run a bit of music underneath the entire podcast.
The
or
entire
some sort
podcast?
of-
I'm sure
well,
that
yeah.
of the few who would enjoy that, there'd be so many who would not.
Hmm.
You mean the video
could be right.
version or the podcast audio?
The video
have a
version, I think.
I have a feeling the appropriate soundbite for that image of Josh would be "Screw you guys, I'm going home."
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I've done that
Yeah.
before. I don't know which
Cartman.
episode it was, but I put Cartman over Josh while he was doing a Cartman impression.
Oh,
I found a Cartman
I don't remember that. I'll
PNG
have
and I
to
made it like
find-
shake around when he was talking. I used to do stuff like that. And then I realized,
Back when
hey, I
you
don't want to
had
spend
energy.
18 hours on a 2-hour podcast.
that seems too long.
It's a minimum 6 to 8 hours just to cut it and begin the export process, because if it's a 2-hour show like this one, I have to watch it in real time and make the edits, and each edit takes a minute, and we're talking about a minute and then 2 more minutes of podcast, another edit, and then adding pictures or whatever.
Hey, it could be film. That's about 10 minutes for every minute,
That's true.
at least.
I'm basically on like a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio on minutes to actual published minutes, I think. No to music. Yeah, I know. Most people would not. I think the one thing I've considered doing is having the intro music play at very low volume, like minus 20 dB under us during the intro every week, but I don't know.
Yeah, that might work.
I literally do it all. Okay, I would tolerate music on this podcast, says Nerf TV, only if you actually had a panelist literally on camera at a piano, like the guy
Oh.
doing the music in real time during the tapings of
What if it was like Ray Stevens?
Or Paul Schaefer.
I have a couple of keyboards and I can play well enough to play something behind us, but it would get very old after a while to hear me play the same like 8 or 10 things I know how to play. Like just
So
Rotating.
chopsticks eternally.
no, it's like crappy block chords and dumb improvisation in like C major and maybe B flat major. I don't know what keys I can actually play on. F, is it
B
F major
flat
or you
major?
B flat? I don't know.
No
I can barely
pianists
even read
here.
music.
This is a family-friendly show.
Yes.
All right. It's time to go. Thank you
Yep.
for hanging out, everybody.
Yes, thanks. Okay, there'll be no music. All right, forget it.
There'll be there'll be no
That
music.
was
It's a terrible
somebody's
idea.
weird suggestion that I just repeated.
No
Canceled.
music. Music is canceled.
Right there with
Because it wouldn't have
2021.
been high enough bit rate. And you can't really enjoy the music if it's only 16 bit. So,
You know, I think we killed that one too.
yeah.
Chip tunes. All right.
All right. Taking the stream down.